Welcome back to another episode of Keoni Chats. If this is your first time checking out the show, I welcome you. All episodes are available on all podcast platforms and YouTube. And if you want to be in the loop for when new episodes are announced, I do make those announcements through social media. So you can follow the show when looking up at KCmedia13 on Instagram and Twitter, or X, and then at Konlu Media on Facebook. So along with the episodes, I do have other creative outlets in the forms of a blog series, and then I really haven't done photos in a long time. But if you want to see some of my older stuff, that is going to be on my website. That's going to be keoniconlu.com, KEONICONLU.com. And yeah, so one of the blog series, the NFL mock drafts, this is about the time where I do release those. I haven't really released one because I do have another podcast show called KCM Sports. And so that is one where I just talk about sports, in particular the NFL, because that's just that's just as a football fan, that's kind of where my allegiance lies. And so the series, the first one I did, was about the NFL roster breakdown, so that was kind of a long one. This new one is called the NFL mock drafts. So the blog series NFL mock drafts, I took it to the podcast, and I just recorded the picks 1 through 20. So I'm going to finish up the last little bit of analysis and then trying to release both of those at once. So I'll make the announcement through social media. So again, follow at KCmedia13 on Instagram and Twitter, and then at Konlu Media on Facebook for that announcement. And then at the same time, I'll also release the remaining picks and what I would think of how they would fit within these teams. So it was challenging. I'll be honest, have like an hour and a half to just me talking and hour and a half of just me, reading what I wrote down and trying to sound like I know what I'm talking about. So, it's definitely something I might continue to try and do as just a new way to, produce content and just have fun. I mean, this is a hobby. I'm not getting paid for this. It's just all for fun. So, check it out there. And then KCM Sports, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all of that. That's where that could be found. So, this week, I have the honor of having Brian Weber as my guest for this week. So, Brian is one of my classmates from my high school days, and we talked about this also in the episode that it's been kind of fun to reconnect with those people that at that point in my life I really didn't know who I was. I really didn't know how to operate as a person, and just to see what they've gone, reconnect with those folks and see where their lives are now and see just some of their struggles. So Brian is a police officer for the city of Astoria, Oregon. And if you are not from Oregon and you're checking out the episode, hello. So if you are looking at Portland and then you kind of go straight to the coastline, so you go straight to the left and then go north, kind of to that border of, actually it is at that border of Oregon and Washington, that's Astoria. So it's a small town, and if you have seen the movie The Goonies, that is where that is filmed. So it's I was very curious, just about because my last memories of Brian in high school were he was just a quiet kid, but in big groups he's quiet. But then if you get him kind of on a one-on-one or like in a small group of people he's comfortable with, then he really does open up a lot. So trying to take that image and, imagine that as a police officer, there's so many questions I had for him on that. So, we didn't just talk about that. We also talked about some of how our similarities of some of the life struggles he went through financially is something I have gone through / still going to, but in a better place mainly thanks to my partner and being able to just help figure it out. Basically, that's pretty much. I'm excited for his episode for you to listen to a piece of his history, a piece of him. So, however you are intaking this episode on whichever platform you prefer, I hope you enjoy my chat with Brian Weber. It's been a hot minute.
Yeah.
Good sir. And God, because these last 14 years have been quite the blur.
Yeah, it's been pretty quick. I mean, from high school to now, it doesn't seem all that long, but in reality it is.
Yeah. And so you and I graduated from Sunset High School back in 2010. And when it came to our anniversary, our 10-year,
yeah,
how were you feeling heading into that?
Honestly, I don't even remember even getting an invite or anything for that. So I was like, when's this supposed to happen? And then I was like, oh, it's 10 years now? And then I think that must have been COVID year. And I was like, I don't think it's happening anymore, even if it was a thing. So I don't remember really hearing anything about it, to be honest. So
Yeah. I remember, because I was a part of the Sunset alumni Facebook group, and I remember Andrew Dang, he was just like trying to coordinate it, and then he was like, oh, it's going to get postponed because of COVID, and then they're like, oh, we'll just lump it with like 2011. I was like, what?
You can't do that.
You can't
have
do
your
that.
own reunion.
Wait, okay, when the idea though, because anniversaries, they do come up, and so what were you thinking it would be like?
For me, I didn't really. I was thinking about it, but I didn't want to go because I was like, not really where I want to be in life right now. And I was like, well, if I see other people, what if they are like in their careers and like I have like this awesome experience, and I'm like, I'm not feeling it. I want to be like, I'm in my career, I'm doing what I want to do, and then like be able to talk about it.
Yeah. I know it's I had the thought of like, okay, I'm gonna go, and then at that point, like 2020, it's like I had this job I had now, and it was like, okay, great, feel awesome, something I can at least talk about. But then I was also like, I'm gonna bring a notepad. I'm gonna take everyone's like little notes for each person, and then I'm gonna follow up with them and try to have some more podcast interviews, because it's been interesting talking to people we graduated with.
Yeah, I hang out. I don't know if you remember Andrew Fong at all.
Oh yeah.
Me and him hang out a lot. Like he's probably my best friend, and we go to Vegas together quite a bit. And
is he up in Astoria too?
No, he's in Beaverton. So we're going to the Blazer game tonight together too.
Oh.
So he and I will just like talk about stuff and be like, hey, you remember this person in high school? I'm like, yeah. Like, what are they doing? We're like, I don't know. Or be like, oh, I saw this person like 2 weeks ago, and they're like, oh, that's really cool, just to reminisce about stuff, especially with like someone that's been with you through that time. So
there are times where my partner and I, we go to the gym, let's say like twice every 7 days, and then there are times where I ran into Sam Novak.
Okay, yeah.
I remember Brendan Doyle.
Oh yeah, I saw Brendan like a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and we do like some sort of acknowledgement of like the nod or like the fist bump or just a quick chat. And then there was one time where I saw Sam, and then I saw, do you remember Sebastian Palacino or something like that?
I vaguely remember him. Yeah,
I ran into him also, and then she was just like, what the hell? I just want to go one place without you knowing people.
Yeah, it's weird to think about how many people are still in the area too. You think a lot of people would probably move away or like maybe not come back as much. I thought when I moved away, I didn't think I was gonna. I mean, even 2 hours away, like I'd be like, oh, I'm not gonna like be able to go to Portland as much as I'd like or come back. But now it's like I'm back a lot more than I think I do, and people are like, you went to Portland again? And I'm like, oh yeah, sorry. So
yeah, it's I definitely thought of, I guess, coming out of high school, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to Culver City in California. I'm gonna work for NFL Network. I'm gonna go, be working in the sport I love.
Yeah.
And then just life happens. So it's like, great. That was a fun idea. Awesome. What did you kind of have in mind for yourself as you were kind of heading out of high school, if you remember?
I remember I didn't really want to continue with school. I wanted to jump into work. It was kind of one of those things. I wasn't the best student in high school. I didn't do well, in my opinion. Maybe I did looking back at it now, just from all the transcripts I've had to get for work jobs I've applied for. And I'm like, oh, I didn't do as bad as I thought, which was a pleasant surprise. But I wanted to really just start working, making money, and so I can move out of my parents' house.
Yeah.
That was my goal at the time. And I was like, I don't want to go to college right now. And then I started working, and I was like, oh, I'm making decent money. And then I turned 21, and that's when I started really applying for police jobs.
Yeah.
And then getting rejection letters a lot. And they're like, well, shit.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel great, you know?
What was your idea of like a police person when you're kind of, because I remember I used to watch Reno 911. Yeah. So that was, I remember Sunset having this like police training day or something like that. Yeah. I remember doing that, and then that first thing the officer said is like, if you've seen Reno 911, this is not what it's like.
Yeah.
What did you think it would be like?
I guess for me, since I was also always exposed to it when I was a kid, like my family isn't super well off, so a lot of times people would, like officers or deputies would bring me or our family food boxes and stuff, and that really stuck with me. And I'm like, oh, that'd be cool to do maybe something like that in the future, like helping and stuff. And then through high school, I got into search and rescue with the sheriff's office, the Washington County Sheriff's Office. So I really got to experience what the job was like at a younger age in high school. And I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to do this job. It's not like where I'm sitting at a desk all day. Like, I like being active. Yeah. And so I'm like, and it's interesting. It changes like every single day. So I'm like, man, I really want to do this. How can I do this? What can I better myself? You know, how can I like do anything I can essentially to get to this point where I want for my career? So
what was the first step you took to like actually what was the first step you feel that you took that actually got you in the right direction? Was it the search and rescue, or was it just, this, again, maybe you watched Reno 911 and you're like, this is it?
No, it's definitely a search and rescue for me.
Yeah.
I had a officer who went to church with us. He's like, hey, we have this program. You should join if you want, really good experience. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to. Yeah. It sounds like a lot of work, at a high schooler.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, thought about it. And then the next year came along. He's like, oh, you really should do it. Like, you're getting, it's I think I'm going to start my junior year. So they're like, it's getting close to your graduation. You probably should think about like careers and stuff. And I was like, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And then I put in for it. I got it. And I was like, went through this academy, 2-week search and rescue academy, where you just basically learn how to do search and rescue, look for people, look for evidence, stuff like that. And it really just took off from there. That program actually allowed me to do ride-alongs too. So I did like hundreds of hours of ride-alongs before I even, graduated high school. So,
and when it came to at least, the first little bit of you with that search and rescue, any like, the what is it, imposter syndrome, or just like, am I really doing this right now?
Yeah. So I actually still like think about it like to this day. I'm like, man, they let me do that stuff. That's insane. Like just like training of like Coast Guard stuff like at 15.
Yeah.
Like learning how to like operate around helicopters and like packaging people up and sending them into helicopters and like doing all this crazy stuff, like setting up a landing zone for a helicopter. I'm like, what? It's wild.
Yeah.
But I remember doing it in high school, and I would get call out in the middle of the day, and I'd be like, well, see you later. I'm gonna go do the search.
I was wondering why I didn't see you some classes now.
I'd be like, well, see you later, guys.
Peace out.
And teachers would be like, okay. Get up in the middle of the day and leave and kind of stuff. So
yeah.
And then it's like doing the ride-alongs too. Like we had a uniform. We wore like some of the same stuff. Obviously not like a gun or anything, but we had radios and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it was a good experience. I mean, it was something that I was like, man, this is fun. Like seeing this stuff every day. This is fun. I want to be in the driver's seat. Let me drive the car.
Okay.
So.
Because from like at least the photo I saw, yeah, you were, I would say, probably in a group of like 15 to 20 kids, maybe like closer to 30. I'm not sure. But was there any like the officer or whoever was leading your class? Did they give any cautionary tale, or like how did they kind of temper your? Because at 15, you have an ego. You have like all sorts of like 100%. Cockiness. Like how did they kind of keep you tempered?
So the academy really did a lot of that. Okay. So it was 2 weeks, and it was essentially like people yelling at you, almost like the military. And you're like, I don't want to screw up now. Yeah. And they're like, this is professional. You're a professional. And they really drilled that into us. And so like in my mind, I'm like, well, shit, this is professional. I have to be like on top of my A game. I can't think about being cocky right now. I have to like be able to help somebody and help my team. So
yeah. Now I'm just thinking like you having this experience, then going back to classes, and it's like, did you kind of feel like you were mature beyond all of the rest of us, or? No,
I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
I mean, everyone has their moments in life and where everyone matures at different rates too. I was like, I don't think I even really talked about it much, because I was like, it's something I do a lot, and I think people would be like, oh, that's cool, well, whatever, and move on. I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about I helped that person today. That's cool, or like I recovered someone's loved one that passed away, and so it was one of those things where I didn't think about like being, hey, guess what I did today? Like, nah, just shut up, school, man, just do my work,
God, because again, at that age, you're also like, you're also a horny kid, and so you're like, I'm gonna use this to, garner some attention from certain someone's. So never use that as.
I don't know if you remember. I was pretty quiet in high school.
You were actually. You were.
I don't think I really broke out of my shell until like right after high school. Knowing I was like, man, something's got to change. Like, I'm kind of boring.
Yeah.
I just remember just in the back a lot and just chilling and listening to teachers and stuff, and I'm like, okay, this is boring. I need to change myself,
So then when you get out, you're officially a graduate. Yeah, you do the Coast Guard training. It's how did it feel going into that, knowing you don't have the requirements of school to balance out?
Well, it's kind of part of the search and rescue. So the Coast Guard thing was part of search and rescue.
Oh, so it's like a 2-year kind of.
So I did it from 17 till I turned 21, search and rescue.
Oh,
so that's when you age out of the program. And then that's the idea was like, well, if you're 21, the idea was go into law enforcement. That's how they're like, hey, this is a interest, like a career interest thing. We want you to move up in our agency, which did not happen. I made mistakes. I worked a job at security at Providence, which I absolutely hated. So I stopped going to work and I got fired. Instead of quitting,
dude,
21, I was like, it's no biggie, and then
we're fine.
And then I was like, shit, I'm out of a job.
Yeah.
So that's pretty low. It was a pretty low point.
Yeah.
Because at the time I was like, I got a new car. Nope, not anymore. There it goes. I can't pay for it.
Yeah.
So and I had to like scramble to get another job. And that's what I was focusing on, just trying to stay above water to pay like rent and like stuff like that. And so I started moving into like more of like a private security sector.
Okay.
So a little bit different, way less pay. So I was making like, at 21, I was making like $28 an hour working at the hospital. And I go down to $14. So I'm like,
that hurts.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Now what do I do? It's kind of one of those scramble moments. And then that was probably some of the rejection, too, of being a cop, because they're like, we don't like people getting fired. So when they're doing the background, it's like, nope, we don't. Try again. 6 months. And then you're like, do I really have what it takes now? And like get in that mindset. You're like, I fucked.
You can curse. It's fine.
Yeah. I was like, I fucked up. How can I make this better?
Yeah.
And so what I learned was, even today now, I don't hardly call off work if I don't have to.
Yeah.
And I show up like 30 to 40 minutes early.
Wow.
Just because I'm like, I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
I don't want to take that moment where I slip and show up late, So.
Yeah, because I learned that in football, where it's like it's better to be early than late, because if you're early, you're on time.
Yep.
If you're on time, then you're late.
Yep.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So I guess when you do, because I've also another friend who went in the military. He was there for a long time, and then I just remember him transitioning from that life to like security guard, like something similar to what you did with Providence. How do you? I'm just thinking, like, you're going from like the extreme of doing something all the time to just.
So like the security job was, I drove around Beaverton area essentially, checking apartments and like locking doors, and I'm like, cool. Basically, it's like, am I ever gonna get out of this? Like, is this my life? Like, thinking like, getting that mindset again. I'm like, oh, this is my life from now on. Oh, what am I doing here? And then I realized, I'm like, man, I can get out of this. I can do something else. And so I started going back to school.
Okay,
trying to
good.
get my degree, which slow process because I only do part time. And and then I was like, I'm gonna go apply for a different job, and ended up getting a job at Kaiser Permanente Security, which I'm like, sweet, back up to what I was making. So a little bit of traction behind that.
Yeah.
Did that for, I did that for 3 or 4 years maybe.
Okay.
So quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, okay. Still applying for police jobs. Still getting rejected. I'm like, okay, why am I getting rejected? So I really dug into that, and I would call like agencies and be like, how can I improve? What do you need me to do? What can I do better? And some agencies are really not really good, but they're good about like giving you little feedback. Most agencies though are like, nope, we can't tell you anything. They're like, cool, thanks for that.
Yeah.
And you kind of feel like you're just like, I'm like dirt to them at that point, which I learned now from my experience. It's like, no, they just can't tell you things.
Gotcha.
They can't tell you things. They're not allowed to tell you things, essentially.
There's certain levels of security that they can disclose
so
with
now
you.
it's like being on the inside, you're like, oh, okay. That makes sense.
So as you're kind of going through these and you're heading into the workforce, you're active on Facebook and Instagram. I found you, but so. I remember when I headed out and I went to Eugene to go to community college, and I felt very self-conscious going to community college when I heard other people going to like 4-year universities.
Oh, yeah.
So for you, as you're, again, working your way into the workforce and also trying to become a police officer, was there anyone that you're like, man, this person's doing this, why can't I get to that level?
Yeah, I always saw people that were going to 4 years. Yeah. And I'm like, man, I regret not going to that now.
Yeah.
Well, but in my back of my mind, I always knew, I was like, I would never do well in a 4-year, because I was like, I don't like some classes that I really need more help in, and I'm like, I would definitely fail.
Yeah.
Because like a 300-person lecture class, no way I would be able to do that.
So are you better adapted at like let's say a 20-person class, kind of more?
Yeah, more smaller.
Okay.
Like definitely in math. Like math, I'm like terrible.
Yeah.
So like I need
sucked
help.
at it.
Like, hey, I got a question. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah.
I know you just explained this, but re-explain it for me.
Yeah.
So like a smaller person class, you can do that versus like a giant class. Like, well, get a tutor, dude.
I remember when I was going through, math was my kryptonite. We're in a room filled with comic book heroes. Oh. So it's like, yes, kryptonite can be applied right now. And I just remember feeling like the dumbest kid that can't pass a math class once.
Yeah, I get that.
And it's like...
So I felt in high school too.
Yeah. Like, oh. Yeah. So then I remember trying to ask my brother for help. Yeah. And he understood math so well. And then anytime he tried to like give me additional like test questions to practice, I'm just like, no, get away from me. I just want to get this done. Go. And then he's like, what? I just want to help.
Yeah.
How do you respond to help? Maybe not just schooling, but just like with life.
I think in general, like I think I'm pretty good at it, because like I'm like, I don't know how to do this. Somebody help me.
Yeah.
Like, especially the job I have now, like you have to have help. Like I don't want to do something wrong, Mm-hmm. Like you have to rely on other people. I'm not afraid to be like, dude, I have no idea what I'm doing right now. Please help me. So I don't have a problem with it. It's pretty. Maybe some things I'm like, nah, I'm good. I know what I'm doing, and then you're like, no, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
I think it's also interesting how, 2010, 2011, you're realizing that, having a paycheck does help with your quality of life. I had that same thing happen to me, like as I was going from Portland to Eugene.
Yeah.
And I knew that I had to like try to get money to pull my weight, but it felt so crippling to like not be able to actually do it.
Yeah.
So it's like my brother, he was like, okay, you just focus on school. I'm going to, I can, it's cheap to live in Eugene. So it was like, okay, he was covering the rent, groceries, and then our mom would just help out. And to this day, where my partners, you're like, oh, we can use our joint account to go cover groceries. Yeah. I'm just like, no, I'm going to ask for help from my mom because I want to contribute. Like, that's just kind of crazy that you and I had that same kind of, obviously different like points, but it's like that growth of thinking was just like, wow.
Yeah, it's definitely weird, like how like you're stuck in some mindset and then you grow into something else and you're like, oh no, like I have this, wait, I need help or I need this backwards or something. So
yeah. And then the rejections that you faced to try to become an officer. Any thought to like, you know what, maybe I'll just go do something for like a stopgap year or just pivot altogether?
Yeah, I almost actually gave up completely. I said screw this finally, and I was like, I was actually working at Kaiser at the time.
Yeah,
and I was like, pretty good thing going here, and why mess it up? I was like, looking at Hillsborough Police Department as a reserve, which is unpaid position. You do everything the same. As a regular officer, just don't get paid for it. And I was like, oh, maybe this is a way in. And I was like, if I don't get this, I'm not going to even bother anymore. Like, this is ridiculous. Like,
this is it. This is the last attempt.
Yep. Yeah. I was like, this is my last hope. I'm going to give up if I don't get this. And I'm like, please get it. And so it was a long wait. So reserves are kind of like essentially obviously not as important as a full-time officer. So you're kind of like different.
Is it basically like you're on call?
No. So how it works is that at the time when I was doing it, we went through academy. I went through a 325-hour academy, and then back at went with Beaverton Police Department, and then back at Hillsborough you ride with a full-time officer, and then you can, and at a certain point you can ride with another reserve.
Okay.
Which I worked my way up to. And then at another point, you can just be by yourself on the road. So you're 100% volunteer, no pay, by yourself on the road. Big responsibility.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, what is going on here? But you're not allowed to respond to like, or be the primary on priority one or two calls. So they're like the most extreme calls. But you can take other calls. So you can do traffic stops and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, this would be a great opportunity for me. Like if I got this, I'm for sure going to get hired somewhere.
Yeah.
So luckily they took me and I was like, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Hey.
Let's get fired up now. And so I did that for a solid year. Did a bunch of trainings. Took advantage of the training opportunities they gave me. Like I went to mental health training stuff to learn how to interact with people with like mental health and talk to them and stuff like that, and went to a few other, like a search warrant writing class, which was pretty cool. And you're going with like full-time people and they're like, why are you here? You're not getting paid. I'm like, I want to get paid. I want to. Essentially I was like a school for being a cop.
Okay.
Really. Like for me, I was doing a full-time job at the time. So I was working at Lewis and Clark College during the time. And I would do that basically, I think 38 and a half hours, so 40 hours a week. Okay. And then I would go in and do 40 hours with Hillsborough. I worked like 410s with Hillsborough as much as I could to get that experience. And I was like, man, I want to work at Hillsborough.
Yeah.
This is the agency I want to be at. Like I knew I was getting to know everybody. They knew me. So I was like, oh man, I'm great. I could do this. I'm a shoe in here.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
No. Damn.
So I applied. They're like, no, you missed the window for the test. And I was like, can you like extend it for me? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay.
Pretty please.
And then at one point they're like, they had it to where reserves would get automatic interviews. And I was like, okay, cool. Like I got an interview. Like I applied a second time. I had all my testing and stuff in it. I was like, but they changed the process and no more automatic interviews for reserves. And I'm like, wait, whoa, hang on, guys.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we got this point system now. And I was like, okay, what's the point system? And so I was like, and they told me, and I missed it by 1 point. I was like, what? I'm like, okay. So I applied to Astoria.
Okay.
And I was like, I really didn't want to. They're probably going to watch this, but I was like really hesitant on applying there in the first place.
Yeah.
Because I was like, man, I don't want to live on the coast.
Yeah, like for those that don't know Astoria, it's like if you are looking at Portland and then you kind of go towards the coastline and then go north. Yeah. When we first reconnected, I was like, it feels like it's kind of like in its own island. It's kind of like its own thing.
Yeah, it's surrounded by water.
Surrounded by water, and there's like one bridge going in, one bridge going out, or one bridge going back into Oregon.
Yeah.
Bridge. There's a bridge going to Washington. Yeah.
And then there's a bridge going into the neighborhood city Warrenton.
For someone that's lived in Portland, that knows the bigger city, that understands like how to get from point A to point B, maybe without even a MapQuest or Google Maps. Yeah, that's tough to just shrink down your world.
Yeah, from a city, I guess, I really combined Beaverton and Hillsborough together into one city. It's like going from 200,000 to 10,000 people. And you're like, where am I?
Yeah, and in terms of when you're going through all of those classes, the school to be a cop, basically what you said. Yeah. What was something that you thought was like so minute, but was like the most interesting to find out or learn more about?
Man, that's a good question. There's so much. It was like drinking from a fire hose,
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, just like.
Well, now that you have some time to actually practice it and apply it, so.
Yeah. I guess just like talking to people in general. Like, most people are not going to just go talk to somebody on the sidewalk. You're not going to be like, if you don't know them, you're not going to be like, hey, what's going on, man?
Yeah.
Like, for me, that was a big game changer. Like, I was like, man, this is uncomfortable. So I'm like, I have to talk to people?
Yeah.
I guess this is the job, but it's weird. Like, you walk up to random people and you're like, hey, what are you doing today? And they're like, hey.
Yeah, it's people that are watching. You have tattoos on your right arm.
I do.
And I assume you have to wear sleeves to cover that, or you can.
So we have a newer chief. He's been there for almost 2 years in this July, I think. Okay. He changed his policy when he came.
Whoa.
So when I got hired originally, they're like, it was a weird tattoo policy.
Yeah.
You got 30% of your arm with tattoos on it. So I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what that means.
Is it like the wrist? Is it like just half the forearm?
So I started in the upper part.
Okay.
And so I was like, I don't need to wear a sleeve because you can't see it.
Yeah, true.
And so I was like, okay. And then I was like working the way down. I'm like, oh man, now I have to wear a sleeve.
Damn.
But which is fine. I was like, whatever. It doesn't take away from what I'm doing. So
yeah.
But now our chief is super cool. He's like, yeah, show those tattoos. Basically, he's like, he's cool. He's super cool. I like our new chief a lot.
Nice. So. Okay, so then let's say I'm on the streets and you're approaching me. So you don't feel like there's any intimidation addition with your tattoos?
No, I don't think so. I think a lot of people have tattoos now. So
that's true.
I think it's becoming more of a norm.
Yeah.
And I don't think my tattoo is that intimidating anyways.
Hey, that mountain.
It's a bear.
That's right.
And then further up, maybe this part, but.
Yeah, okay, there's the bear. I was trying to look for it in the details in the forearm.
Yeah,
and I was like,
that part, but you don't even see that part when I'm wearing my uniform.
That's true.
It's this part, but most people are like, that's a sick color, man. And I'm like, thanks. I didn't do it, but it's good. But, yeah, I'll talk to people. It's actually a good talking point, too. People just be like, hey, like walk up to me like, hey, like, where did you get your tattoo?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, in Tiger, Skin City, man. Hit him up, Jason out there. He's like.
So you got it local.
Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking got it back in Astoria.
No, I come out here. So.
Shoot, man. That's dedication to, keep the city you grew up in, close to your heart.
Yeah.
Especially when the drive from Astoria to here, again,
2-ish hours.
2-ish hours.
40, depending.
in the mountain, kind of going through mountain passes, kind of.
Yeah, it's hard when it snows. I don't come out here if it snows. I'm
No.
like, no, thanks. I'm good.
So you're here, you're with a friend, and you guys are going to see Blazer game. So on those days where you're just coming here on your own, how do you keep yourself entertained?
Man, I just listen to podcasts, honestly.
Hey,
podcasts,
look at that.
Books.
Yeah.
I'm not a big reader, so I like to listen to audiobooks instead.
Okay.
I'm supposed to fills in that time, and so it's fun.
Yeah.
I'm listening to the Hunger Games series right now because I just watched all the movies again. I'm like, I should listen to the book. And then I was like, wow, the book is way different. So
yeah, I had that experience with when I started dating my partner. Like, she also is a big audiobook person, so she's like, you should listen to all the Harry Potters, and I was like, okay, sure, because I'm at a desk job, so I can. But it's just like, wow, there was a lot of bits that was not in the movie.
Yeah.
What the hell? This is
so different.
It's so different.
I was like, now I understand why people are like, this is not like the book at all.
And then, so I believe it's like Jim Daly that does the Harry Potters. And I remember when I listened to it, I was just like, dude, his voice, the way he's able to change it. And then, so I mean, if I don't even know any of the people that anyone else that does the books, but what is a book you've heard on tape that you're just like, wow, this guy's really good, or this gal's really good?
I think I listened to American Sniper. I was like, oh man, I gotta listen to this thing right now, the whole thing. And I was like, I don't have enough time.
How do you make time for yourself, other than trips to Portland to watch a Blazer game?
Outside of work, man, I just try to more of a homebody, Astoria's hard because I have a lot of bars there. I don't know if you've been to Astoria.
I like pass through.
So there's a lot of like bars. So if you're into the like hanging out, like drinking social and stuff, that's cool. Like you could definitely do it. I mean, I'm not into that.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to. So there's a sergeant that used to work with me. He's retired now, so I'll hit him up because he does a lot of stuff outdoors. I'm like, hey man, like, I heard you have an extra bike. You want to go mountain bike? He's like, yeah, hang on, let's go, bro. So,
yeah.
I'll go mountain bike occasionally with him.
Nice.
I've been really bad about getting outside on my days off because I'm just like burnt. Like I'm tired.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, okay. So this summer I'm like, I need to do at least one thing a week to get outdoors. So I'm looking at getting a kayak.
Wow.
Do that, so
that's awesome.
Because I'm like, man, I need to go outside.
And I get it. And have you been recognized by anyone? Like, I don't know if you have, like, let's say, I don't know if you have like people you routinely see like on the streets, for example. But I know if like, since Astoria is such a small city, if they see you just kayaking, they're like, oh, that's Officer Weber.
Oh, I'm sure they would. Oh. Even like I go to the store and like, hey, what's up? I'm like, hey. I try to like dress in a hoodie and like keep my hood. Like I don't like trying to like mix work with my personal life too much.
Yeah.
So like out in the community, I'm like, hey. People are like, hey, it's fine. Like, like if it's people like I actually genuinely want to talk to, I'm like, hey, what's up? And like, hey, what's going on? More like first name basis though, so it's more because on my business card, my first name's on it. So
that's true.
People leave my voicemails and be, hey Brian, I'm like, who are you? I don't know who you are, but I'm sure I helped you at some point.
She'll be like, hey Brian, this is your teacher from sophomore year. What the hell? How'd you get here? So going outside, that's awesome. But then Jake Island, I don't know if you remember him. He was kind of like our freshman to junior year. Then he went to Westview our senior year. After he left high school, he went into the Army. And so he told me about some stories of, getting injured during training and then also just be on the shelf for a little bit. And, you did tear your Achilles in 2014. What are some of the other injuries that you got during your training that's kind of lingering with you right now?
I just remember getting my dog at that point. My first dog, I was like, hey, what's up? I want someone to hang out with them when I'm injured.
Yeah.
And then, but at the time, I was like, this is a great idea. And then I was like, this is a terrible idea. I can barely walk. How'd they take him outside?
Just tie the leash to your like wheelchair and just say, go.
Like down the stairs outside. I'm like, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
I had to like figure out how to carry him with like going down the stairs. I'm like, okay, go to the bathroom and stand out for like 20 minutes. Like, are you done yet? Or, and then bring him back inside.
Yeah.
Do it again in like an hour. I'm like, oh, but now he's cool. Like he's chill now. He's like 10 now. He has one eye. He has a bad back. I'm like, bro, you're old. He's like, yeah, I know, basically.
So other than Achilles, you were kind of relatively healthy throughout the whole training process?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, as far as like that goes, you know, up until recently, I found out an AFib, chilling at home, you know, and I was like, man, my heart feels like I was ran a mile. And I was like, look at my watch, and I was like, that's probably weird. It's 175 beats per minute.
It's a little high.
I look at my wife. I was like, I think we need to go to the hospital. And she's like, why? I'm like, and she's like, oh, shit. So we go down there. And of course, everything's normal when you go to the hospital. You're like, oh, you're fine.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'm like, I don't think I'm fine, but okay.
Can you just take another gander?
Well, they're like, maybe you got a heart attack. So they did all the tests for the heart attack. I was like, I don't think so. I'm too young.
Yeah.
No, I refuse. Can't work the road
Okay.
as a police officer for 3 months.
Oh.
And I was like, I don't want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I took a month off just with sick time because I was like, I could sit at home probably and just do the same thing. And I had time anyways. So I was like, I'd rather be at home and just hanging out. They're like, don't work out. I'm like,
so yeah, you're getting in great shape and you're like, I'm feeling, you know, we're also young at this point. So it's like, I don't feel like all these achiness is like starting to kick in yet. So yeah, it's like, you know, having that great feeling of like good health and, you know, trying to do this and then just having that all shut down because you can't do it.
Yeah.
That's like another.
It was a shock. Like,
yeah.
I was like, I was working out 5 days a week. Right, like an hour and a half, 2 hours every day after work. Literally go right to the gym because there's a gym. There's a workout area in the fire department that's connected to our building. So I would just go right over there from the locker room, do my thing, and go home. Yeah. And I was like, man, I'm feeling great.
Yeah.
And then I was like,
do you feel like your chest puffing out a little bit?
Yeah.
Shoulders are getting a little more broad.
The firefighter guy. That's
yeah.
He's like, oh, you do arms today? I'm like, yeah, man. Can you tell? He's like, yeah, you look great. So he's like, and then after that, I'm like, man, I have what? I have a heart arrhythmia?
Yeah.
What's AFib?
Yeah.
What's A-flutter?
Is AFib like a type of food?
I was like, what?
Yeah.
What is this? And then, of course, like, I'm obviously not a medical professional, so I'm like Googling everything.
Sure.
I'm like, what is this?
Oh, what did you do WebMD?
I did what? Nah, I went to Mayo Clinic, or it's called, or
okay, we're good.
I went to the Mayo Clinic and some other stuff, and I'm like, okay, it doesn't sound so bad, I guess, but can I be a cop still with this? Like, that's my first thought. I was like, well, sure. I mean, if your heart rate goes up, like you're in a stressful situation, it's going to go even higher. And I'm like, what does this mean? Can I do this? And then waited 3 months for a doctor's appointment. And
damn, that's a long time.
Uncertainty at this point. Yeah. Like, my mind's still like, I can't even do this job and get into the routine of the desk duty job and just doing odd end jobs like reorganizing closets and then at one point I was like, I'm going to start taking the desk reports because to help in the back, because I'm like, these guys are working the road. They don't need to come back to the lobby every time there's a desk report. So I'm like, I'm going to start doing it. And they're like, they were good at that. So I was like, cool.
Nice.
Started doing all these. I was like, oh man, I'm getting really good at this. And then I went to the doctors and he's like, why didn't you just call me like 3 months ago? I'm like, what are you talking to me? He's like, you could have been working this whole time. I'm like,
damn it, Doc.
I was like, I wish I would have known. Yeah. Because I would have been. So.
Well, because also, I schedule appointments, let's say dermatologist, and they're like, oh, the next availability, like, let's say I call it like December. It's like, oh, the next availability isn't until May.
Yeah.
So you're insane. Like, what? Yeah. So I get that of like just following the instructions of what the nurse gives you.
Yeah. I'm like, they didn't tell me I could call. I would have.
Yeah. So okay, I also forgot that, like, you can still be a cop and not go out in the field. Like, there is stuff to do within the precinct.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, our agent's smaller than like the bigger ones, obviously. So it's not like a bigger agency where there's always people coming in to do calls. So I was doing like phone call, like people will be like, oh, I want a phone call about this. I'd be like, oh, I'll take it. Or, oh, I need to come in and make a report. I'll take it. So I tried to do everything I could to still be in the rhythm of getting the investigations and doing reports. I mean, I went and did a burglary call. And, like, I was like, yeah, I kind of look like a detective right now. Walking in there, and I'm like, cool. So, yeah,
Nice.
it was interesting during that time.
Did you feel like a caged animal? You're like, I need to go.
Yeah, a little bit, because you're so used to driving around, doing stuff, looking for things to do, going to call, and since you're like, man, this is different. It's like I don't like it, but it is what it is, you know.
Yeah.
So
then when you did do some Department of Public Safety and Standards Academy back in 21, was this kind of like following all of this experiences with the DFib and all that, or was this beforehand?
No, so this is beforehand. I had the AFib last summer.
Yeah.
So it was only like a few months ago.
Oh,
so
way before.
Yeah. So, the academy, the basic police academy, is 640 hours. So
yep,
you live down there. Oof. Come home on the weekends if you want. I mean, I did. I want my bed, you know, and see my wife.
Yeah.
Did that, and it comes out to 16 weeks. It was weird because it was still like COVID times.
That's true.
They were trying to just figuring out how to get back into things, and like wear your mask, and then like obviously people were like not wearing them, and you're like, I don't want to wear one either. So like everyone starts not doing it, and they're like, you have to wear your mask or you send you home. You're like, okay, never mind, let's put the mask on. And
did you have the mask and like the shield? And because I've seen some people like for like the Portland, I saw some with the shield.
I did we got approved to wear the gator thing.
Okay.
So I just had it over my face.
Yeah.
And then obviously found out later they're not that great. But I was like, oh, this is better than a mask.
True.
My glasses get all fogged up, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. That is a good point. No contacts?
No contacts.
Damn.
So I did that, graduated, then do a 4-month field training program back at your agency. So you learn all your agency, you learn how to handle calls.
Yeah.
Learn to be a cop, essentially.
Okay, so this helped with the time where you had to step off the road and be at is it precinct or is it, how do you classify?
It's a department.
Not on, just your in-house.
Yeah, so after the academy, everyone's required to do field training. So
okay.
It's 4 months, and then you're on probation for 18 months. So it's a long process.
Yeah, that is.
It's good.
Well, I mean, you got some good, abilities, some good like, you know, training when you're at that academy. You know, your baton, handcuff, radar. Was that?
After the academy, this is when I became.
Oh, this is afterwards.
Yeah, so
I'm trying to understand your life, man. You have so many things going on.
Education training, essentially.
Okay.
So at the academy, it's its basic foundation of police work. So you're learning how to be a basic police officer, able to go out on the street and be like, this is how I handle this call.
And then this is just filling in the rest of those gaps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
gotcha.
I saw our department. I was like, hey, if you want to be a trainer in this stuff, let us know. And I was like, okay, sure, why not? And so I was like, I'll do baton. And so it's just, you know, it's like a 3-day class.
Oh, okay.
Learn how to be an instructor, learn how to teach people. I didn't know incorporated handcuffing in that class. So I was like, sweet. I became a handcuff and baton instructor. And then I was like, they're like, hey, we need a radar LiDAR instructor, which radar's for speed. So it's LiDAR.
Oh, okay. So you're the basically guy on the side of the freeway.
So we have, in our cars, we have the moving radar, so we don't have the handheld one.
Nice.
So if we're driving, someone's zooming by you, be like, oh, that guy's going like double speed and what? Go pull him over and kind of thing. And then the LiDAR is a laser, so you can pinpoint people. So I'm an instructor in that. So that was pretty cool. And then I became an instructor this year for, I think it's called the Citizen Active Threat Response Education. So basically you go around to different like businesses and or like schools and hospitals, and you teach administration, hey, this is what happens if there's an active threat in your building. So,
mm-hmm. Yes, I saw you put that down, and I thought we all went through the COVID coming into our lives, and then now we're 4 years into it, which is crazy to think about. But I really, with you and your position with the Astoria Police, I was so curious about 2020 for you, because you had George Floyd, and then you had all of this negativity towards police, and that, I think maybe it was like the year later where I learned the phrase ACAB, which if you're curious what that is, you can Google it. I'm not gonna say it. So it's just like there were so many things that I was just like, it felt very heavy to be a person in your position. So what was just that first year? What was that year like for you?
So, I mean, it's different in Astoria because it's not a huge city. So you're not going to get like the protests and like Portland kind of stuff. I mean, I'm cool if you want to protest, man. If you're right, I'm not going to be like, no, don't do that. Like, I'm cool with it. I mean, I get what people are saying. So it's like, of course, there's going to be bad aspects of everyone's job. I'm no denying that. But there's, like for me, it doesn't personally affect me. Mm-hmm. Like it might affect the job, how it goes. Like, there's like new things we have to learn, new techniques or whatever, which is not a bad thing. I think it's good to evolve and have better understanding and better, I guess, better uses of what you can and can't do. I mean, it's not bad. I mean, I think it could be like some people look at it as positive, other people are maybe negative, but I think in the long run, change is good. Yeah. Change is inevitable. You just have to go with it, You have to adapt to it, which, being a cop, you have to adapt. And that's the thing, how it is, And I don't have a problem with that. I think it's good to reflect on those things too. Mm-hmm. And be like, oh man, I see why people are upset. Or like, okay, maybe you might disagree with something, but then you have to look at other people's opinions too. So yeah.
Okay. I feel like there's one of those like, if I don't ask this, then it's like, oh, missed opportunity there. But I think it does make sense, because also from what you said of just, you had to take your time at the department inside of in-house. You couldn't go on the road. From you just saying like you want to do anything, you want to do everything. It's like one of those, okay, you seem open to change. Yeah. You seem open to adapting also.
It has to. You have to be. Like, regardless of what you want, it might not always what you get, Like, you're not the politician making the change. You just have to go with it. And it's like, fortunately, it's like, if you don't like it, that's kind of just too bad, Yeah. You just, hopefully, like, there's been laws where we were like, hey, like, well, this is weird. Why are we doing this? And then it's like, you know what? All right, I guess we're gonna do it.
So how much, or however much you can divulge, how is that new way or new processes? How is that presented to you guys, or to you officers?
I guess sometimes it's challenging just because of the climate too, but in general, I think we're always gonna have training and people teaching us how to do certain things, and you just have to learn, grow. Case law, even in Oregon, changes specifically so you're like, if you're keeping up on it, you're going to know it. So, hey, I know that law, so I can do that. Or, this is what we can do. This is what we're not supposed to do. So, yeah.
That's what even as like, so as a civilian, where I always say like, or at least I see on TV or something that's like, know your rights and all of this. So it's like, that's fair. Do I know my rights to this day? That's neither here nor there.
And I encourage people to exercise those rights. Like, I'm like, hey, it's your right, man. Like, I encourage you to do it. I encourage you to exercise those rights. That's just my opinion. No, I'm speaking for myself.
Yeah.
I'm not speaking for anybody else, but I'm just saying, hey, if you want to do it, then okay.
Go for it.
I'm not going to stop you.
Yeah.
So,
how are you feeling knowing that you're going to have your first trainee as a field officer coming up?
Yeah, so I actually just started this last Wednesday.
Hey, that's exciting.
It's different.
Yeah.
It's different giving up the control aspect of it because, like you're doing everything. You're there. You're like you're making the decisions, and then now you're in the passenger seat. You're like, okay, what are you doing today? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And it's just different. I know how I was as a new person, and so I look back on it and be like, what could my trainer done different? And how can I improve?
Okay.
And I'm like, hey, what's your learning style? Like, how can I better equip you in learning this job? And he's like, for him, he was like, hands-on, man. I'm like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
So it's different, and it's like, then you're grading them. So I'm like, oh man, I feel bad. And
Yeah.
you're like, but this is part of the process. Like,
Yeah.
you get a bad grade today, but you might get a really good one tomorrow. So this is part of the process. You know, it's different. Been 2 days of it so far. We'll see how it goes more, but so far I like it. I mean, I've always wanted to, I guess, teach this profession to people, like new people coming in, because I'm like, well, maybe like I can impact somebody in a positive way and be like, oh, I really like this job and this is fun. Mm-hmm. Like, I love my job. Like, it's fun every single day when I go to work. So
nice. Have you? Because with my work, I have been there for 4 years. So now I've left the position I started with, and now I'm helping interview for the position to fill in, like when it leaves. I was a front desk person, so it's like, I leave to the membership team, so like I help interview to replace me. So when it comes to like training those folks, right, like answering questions, it's just like it's always like those weird, like, oh wow, this is fun. It's like it's going back to my old days. But this past Friday, I was helping the new person with like something. I helped set up Zoom for our conference room. So it's like trying to remember all of those things.
Yeah.
I'm like, God damn, I'm rusty. Good Lord. So, but it is a very rewarding feeling to, pass that knowledge down. Have you thought about how you're going to handle when it comes to like the trainee screwing up?
Yeah. So it's just one of those things. I think I don't want to be like one of those guys to be like, you're an idiot.
Sure.
I want to be like, okay, I understand where you're coming from, but why did you do it this way? Like, explain to me why you did it this way. And now let's think about this way, because this is probably the better way to approach it. But at the end of the day, my opinion is like, you get to the end result and you go a different way from me.
Yeah.
And it's the correct thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stop you, man. Like, you do you. And if I'm going to stop you if it's something major, but if you're doing everything correctly, just a different way from what I would do, okay, cool. Mm-hmm. What if I like your way of doing it? I want to see how people do things. My way might not be the best way either, So. Yeah.
For your wife, if she is listening to this, I'm sorry if this is a question that you have not discussed yet. Do you want to have kids?
We've talked about it.
Oh, then okay, we're fine. Brian's wife. Sorry.
Yeah, we've talked about it. It just when the right time is for us. She's recently talked about she wants to go to grad school for counseling.
Nice.
And I'm like, well, maybe probably not the best time to have a kid now, but things happen.
With all your experiences so far, what would you say is the most standout? I guess standout experience that you have had that you think is going to help you for when you become a dad.
Man, I think a lot of it. It's probably my job too, learning the patience. Like being a police officer, you have to have patience, man. Like, you have to have a lot. And like, some people are like, what are you doing, dude? Or like, are just confused. And you're like, sometimes like you want to move on to another call, but your call's not done yet with a certain person. You're like, okay, hurry up. Like, I get it. Like, but hurry up. But then you have to remember this person, like, is having a point in their life where they need you. Yeah. And you're like, snap back into it. And you're like, no, I'm here for you. This is why I want to, this is why I'm doing this job. I care about you. Even though I don't know you, I still care about you. This is why I'm here. And then I realize I'm like, okay, time to get your patience on. So, yeah.
Because as you were talking about, like, how you're handling your trainee so far and then what you're kind of like expecting to do down the road, it does sound like a lot of just parenting style. It's like, just say like, okay, it's not, you did this, but let's think about another way you could do this. I was like, oh, that does sound.
Yeah, I mean, even if you don't have someone that you're training,
yeah,
it's a lot of like you're wearing everyone puts it, wearing a lot of different hats.
Yeah.
Like you could be a counselor at one point. You could be trying to like solve some financial issue, but at the end of the day, for me, it's like they're people. We're people. We all make mistakes. I don't, that's how I look at it. Yeah, like if I'm arresting somebody, you made a mistake. Like I'm not there to judge you. I'm just there to do my job.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna be like, you're a piece of shit.
I am sure that's exactly what every single person that you've had to unfortunately do that to is thinking in their head. They're probably like, oh God, this guy probably thinks I'm a piece of shit.
Well, people make mistakes.
Yeah.
I'll tell people, I'm like, man, this was a mistake, dude. Like, it doesn't define who you are.
Yeah.
So.
What is, I got kind of keeping on the topic of the trainee. What is a mistake you did kind of early on that you're like, okay, because you did mention not showing up to work. Let's take that example out of it. What's another mistake that you did that you're just like, okay, if this comes up, I got to make sure this guy or gal knows exactly how to attack this problem.
Oh man, just thinking about it early as being a police officer. I would make a lot of mistakes. My trainers would be like, what are you doing? I'd be like, I don't know, man. It's just one of those things,
Yeah.
Man, I can't really think of an example.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's plenty.
So then let's twist that question. What's the funniest thing what was the funniest excuse you've given to your your officer that trained you when they asked that question? Because it sounds like you got some good ones.
I just go, I don't know, man. Am I right? Or are you wrong? I could be right. And then when you get to the point where you're second guessing yourself.
Yeah.
And then I had one trainer, he's like just staring at me. I'm like, what? He's like, no. I'm like, I'm going the right way, right? He's like, sure. I'm like, so I'd be like, okay. And I'd continue driving and see him looking at me. So I'm like, what? He's like, nothing, man. I'm just looking to see what you're doing. I'm like, driving to this call. He's like, okay. And I'd be like, okay. And I would turn around and be like, where are you going? What do you mean? I'm going the other direction. You told me to. He's like, I didn't say a single word to you, dude. I'm like, oh, was I going the right way? He's like, yeah. I'm like,
okay. So one of my last couple of questions, but it's just like, what's the brotherhood? What's that, or like the camaraderie or the connectiveness that you feel when you're going into work every day? How is that like?
I do feel like it's a family.
Yeah.
We work with each other a lot. I mean, I'm with them 12 hours a day, half the month, so you see them a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like you have coworkers that get on your nerves, or like
sure, yeah.
You have coworkers that upset you, and I think that's normal. But then you go to a call, and then you have to be like, no, you can't have that.
Yeah.
You have to forget that because, you have to rely on that person. You have to be like, hey, I need your help. Or if there's something that you don't know, or if there's just, in general, if there's something dangerous situation, you're like, well, shit, man, I need you.
Yeah.
And I don't have any issue saying anybody has my back there. So
good. Need you in one piece, Brian.
Yeah, I try.
So you mentioned earlier that you've shifted yourself into a homebody. You like to just be within your comfortable quarters and kind of unstressed from there. What is something you do to help yourself kind of ease back from the edges of being a cop every day, being out in front of people?
Yeah. So I like to build model airplanes a lot. Just because it's this primarily focused on trying to get those tiny pieces on there, and you have to focus so hard, and it's just like I don't have to think about really anything else. I can just zone out and do that.
Nice.
And like, in my job, it's like you have to be vigilant. You have to stay like alert all the time. Like, so you have that, I wouldn't say stress, but it's that awareness around you all the time. But at home, you're like, oh man, I'm safe.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I'm not saying like I'm like in danger all the time, but it's different. It's a different level of alertness. So, I get home sometimes, I'm very introverted. Actually, I have to force myself out of my comfort zone all the time at work.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that's exhausting if you're not that personality type.
Yeah.
I'll go home and be like, oh, there's dishes to do. And I'll just be like washing the dishes, and my wife's like, you don't have to do those. I'm like, oh, I know. Let me get this. Look at this cheese on this plate, and I'll be wiping it off.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay,
sweet, thanks.
Yeah, literally. And I'm like, oh, this is weird. Why am I doing this? And I make that connection. Like, oh, this is something I can just not have to talk to anybody right now.
True.
So
true. Because there are times where, I'm at home, and then I just put like something on the computer, and then I just start washing dishes, and then my partner comes home. She's like, "Oh, I didn't expect you to do this." I was like, "Yeah, but it's like that naggingness of like, oh, it's just I need to use the sink, but there's like 20 other things in my way." Yeah. So partly for her, partly for me. Who's really to say?
Our sink is tiny, so I'm like,
is it?
Like 5 plates are like back to sec. I'm like, oh man, I gotta clean these.
In college, I had a 2-sinker, so it was nice. But then when I wanted to cook rice, and the rice cooker, it's probably about the size of, let's say, 2 of those Pop Figure toys put together, and I put that in the sink, because if it's like brown rice, obviously put a little more water, and it will overflow, and it will just fit perfectly in the sink. That's it. That's all you could use it for. I was like, this sucks.
Yeah, so our apartment before the house we moved into had a huge sink. So I'd like, just throw stuff in there. And and now I'm like, oh man, I can't do that.
I have grown up. I've pinpointed I needed to be more clean.
Exactly. So.
I keep saying this, but I think this is gonna be my last question. But your wife, how does she feel about you being a cop?
She's like super, super supportive.
Okay.
We weren't even married yet, and I got offered a job at Astoria, and I was like, hey, like, I want to take this job. Like, this is my career, start of my career. Mm-hmm. Like, you can come with me, or you don't need, like, you don't have to.
No hard feelings.
Yeah. And she's like, no, I'll go with you.
Wow.
She gave up her really good paying job and moved out there. The day after we got married, before I left for the academy, day after we moved, I left for the academy. No friends out there, no job yet. And so she's just at the apartment.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
And she's like, it's not easy. Which I understand. Like, especially if in a new city you don't know anybody. How hard is that?
Oh, yeah.
No family out there, nothing.
We were just talking about before we started how hard it is to make friends, and we're both 32, so it's like it's hard to make friends if you're not like actively involved in like sports clubs or book clubs or whatnot,
or even like work. I mean,
or work, yeah.
Really make friends at work, like. So I was like, man, like I felt bad.
Yeah.
Like I felt bad, like just knowing like she was by herself for the whole week, and home on the weekends. I'd come home on Friday night late because I'm 2.5 hours back from Salem.
That's yeah.
And then, so I'd be home by like 10-ish if I didn't stop anywhere, which I sometimes did for food or whatever.
Obviously, you can't.
Hungry,
Yeah.
And then I'd get, maybe not that late, but it was like 8 o'clock at night.
Sure.
So I was like, I'd hang out with her, try to hang out as much as I could, and then Saturday rolls around, we spend together, and I believe on Sunday. So I'd be like, okay, I'm here for like a half a day, and then see you later. So yeah, it was tough on her. But
so I've been doing therapy since I think it would be 2017. I did it for like a year, and then I took a break, and then I'm doing it again. And something my therapist has showed me is that, hey, have you heard the term people pleaser? And I was like, I have now. Thanks. um, do you feel that you have that? I mean, obviously with your wife, it's kind of a different story, but it's like just in general with work, or just with like, you're hanging out with your friend, and then also one of our former high school mates. I was like, do you feel you have any kind of people pleaser in you?
I think a lot for work.
Yeah.
Like when they call me, they're like, "Hey, you want to come in and work?" I'm like, "Yeah." Well, one, I like my job, but
Sure, yeah.
But they're like, "Hey, you want to work?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then I'm like September, I worked an insane amount of overtime, like 90 something hours, and I was like, I'm never doing that again. And I was kind of my own doing too. I signed up for a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I can handle it. And then I'm like, no, I can't. I was so tired at the end of the month. But yeah, I think a lot of work. People ask me to do things. I'm like, yeah, I can do that. Which it's good and bad because it shows I want to do it.
Yeah.
The other side is like, am I pulling myself in too many directions?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Other times you're like,
yeah. I'm like that too with work, where it's like, at least when I started, I was like, I want to show that I can earn my keep, and I can, because also, again, this was during COVID when I started at this job. So it's like, I knew if worse comes to worse, I'm kind of lowest man on that totem pole. Yeah. So it got to that point where it's like, if we're going through an office renovation, it's like, hey, I need you to come to the office on a Saturday just to let people in. I was like, sure, yep, I'm there. And then she's just like, are you getting paid for this? I was like, oh, heck yeah. I'm not doing this for free.
Yeah. Man, friends, I think I've learned to say no more. Okay. Just because I want to spend time at home with my wife and hang out and not always be on the go. Yeah. Before, I would have been like, yeah, let's hang out, or let's go do this, or feel like I have to do something almost in a way, even though I knew I didn't have to. Yeah. But I almost felt like, I feel bad. I haven't seen him for 2 weeks or something. I'm like, I should go hang out with him or something. But now I'm just like, no, I'm good. I'll be like 9 at night. Hey, you want to come out? No, I'm going to bed, bro. I'm tired. I think it's just the realization, getting older, it's okay to say no to people sometimes. Yeah. Like, no, leave me alone.
I think what's been so surprising is that, like, yes, I do, like, when we reconnected, like, I do remember you interacting with you, and there are times where it's like, in a big group, you and I were both just like on that edge of just like just being there. Yeah. But then when we got like kind of close, like 4 people, for example, then it's like, you opened up, and so just having that thought, and then now connecting it with this conversation of like how open you are, and then just how like I guess the whole idea of also you're a police officer, and like openness, it's always kind of like that weird connective thought. It's like, growing up, we always saw police officers as like these hard asses. Like, I'm not going to share my emotions because I can't, because it's life or death every day. Which
definitely back in the day was definitely like that. Yeah. I mean, late 90s, early 2000s, it was kind of a stigmatism. Yeah. I think in law enforcement, be like, no, like, I don't want to say what I'm feeling. Yeah. But now they're really supportive of mental health stuff. So they're like, hey, like, if you need to talk about it, talk about it. Yeah. If you need help, get help. We have a peer support team. So.
Oh, great.
They're like, hey, come talk to us if you need something.
Yeah.
If there's like a major incident, or like you're part of a major incident, they'll be like, we have a peer support meeting. Let's come together and let's chat. And if you need anything, we have a chaplain that comes in, even if you're not religious, but he'll come in and be like, hey, you need anything? Like, you just need to talk or whatever. So it's super awesome to have that. So
good. What does cause you anxiety? What makes you stop and pause? Man, in your personal life, let's take it that one.
Definitely finances.
Oh yeah,
because I'm like, everything now, it's like so more expensive. Yeah, and I'm like, well, I'm making good money. Then I'm like, oh wait, that's expensive.
Psych.
Yeah. So I mean, definitely finances. I'm very, like, growing up, we didn't have much money, so now I'm like, I have money, like, I want to spend it.
Right?
And now I'm like, wait, hang on.
Brian, if you're like, I have money, I'm going to start a podcast, I'm going to find you in Astoria. Then I'm going to be a guest on your show.
I've been trying to get my wife to start like a vlog, man. Like,
oh, wow.
It's like, start a vlog. And she watches them all the time.
Yeah.
Like, cool, you're watching someone clean again? That's so cool. And she's like, shut up. I'm like, start a vlog. Your life's pretty interesting. Like, I think people would watch it.
Yeah.
But
nice.
Just one of those things where I'm like, oh, let's do whatever makes you happy.
With your wife being also from that University of Oregon.
Yeah.
And from me.
Yeah.
Do it. Even if you don't think it's interesting, even if you don't think it's going to garnish anyone's attention, just do it for yourself.
Yeah, I was like, what if it makes you happy? Like, I'm supportive of it, you know? Like, she's like, what do you think about grad school? I'm like, will that make you happy? She's like, yeah. I'm like, do it.
Yeah.
Figure out the money later.
Yeah.
Oh, no big deal.
Lemonade stand.
Heck yeah. $5 a cup. Come on.
Because I imagine with work, you can't really freeze. You kind of have to always be on alert, like you just said earlier.
Yeah. I mean, like, people often will call like traffic stops routine traffic stops. I would say unknown traffic stop. You don't know who's in that vehicle, right?
Yeah.
I do a lot of traffic stops because I like to do DUI investigations. So try to look for drunk drivers and impaired drivers and
yeah.
So, like, I make a lot. Also, like, just for the fact that, you know, just safety in general. I don't write a lot of tickets, but some people know I don't write a lot of tickets. I do make a lot of traffic stops.
Yeah.
Just talk to people.
Oh.
Be like, hey, why are you going this fast? And, like, some people are like, oh, sorry. Other people are like, I don't know. Why not? I'm like,
yeah.
Great.
Well, here's your ticket.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, like, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, you might go to, like, a mundane call, and then next day you might have the exact same call, but something else could be completely different about it. So you have to always be prepared for something. So,
yeah. Okay.
It's weird.
Man, finding out that you're with Astoria Police Department, and then just hearing you talk today and just seeing you in person for the first time in 14 years. I'm so happy for you, man. Yeah. You look fantastic. You got the great goatee going, and then you look happy. So I'm happy for you too.
Like, spend like something I've always wanted to do. You know, it's just getting there was the challenge.
Yeah.
I'm happy where I'm at, and I don't see, you know, it's funny. I actually applied to a couple places this last year, like a South Dakota agency.
Whoa.
Because my wife's family moved out there, and we're like, oh, we want to be close to them. And
yeah.
They're like, and I got the HR letter. Oh, no thanks, but thanks. Okay, whatever. I was like, it's too cold anyways to be out there. And then tried for Hillsborough again, and I got really far, and there's like, we're going in a different direction. And I was like, okay. And so I was like, this year I was like, man, I really need to start thinking in the future what I want to do. And so I put in for more trainings and stuff. And, you know, I was like, oh, I want to be a sergeant, and I want to be, my end goal is to be chief of police somewhere someday.
Wow.
So I'm trying to go back now to school for my bachelor's degree, and hopefully my master's at some point. But
nice.
I love my job. I do. It's so fun.
Good. Well, as we kind of wrap up, I do like to ask 3 questions from this Would You Rather packet. Something fun to kind of wrap it all up in a bow.
Okay.
Is this not actually? I'm going to ask you 2 because there's one question I do want to ask. Because again, I mentioned Reno 911. There was also Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
I love that show. I've been watching Netflix with.
It's good. It's fun.
It's so funny.
And then there's probably all these other like 911 shows on NBC or whatnot. Out of the police shows that you have seen, which is actually the most accurate?
Oh, man. I don't watch a ton of the, like, drama series. I watched, like, On Patrol Live. You know, if you know what Live PD was on A&E?
Kind of, yeah.
So Live PD was essentially had live video.
Like the dashboard cam? And
camera crew following live.
What the hell?
Yeah, so if you have Peacock, I'm not sponsoring the show. But
I wish they would. But anywho.
I'm not throwing out a sponsor here. I'm just saying, if you go on the it's on the Reels network on there, it's called On Patrol Live now. And it follows the police through their daily. There's like essentially like a video ride along.
Okay.
That's how I would describe it. And then I watch Cops a lot just because I'm like, oh man, I want to do that. Or I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. I'll fall asleep to Cops sometimes when I'm in bed.
Yeah.
And my wife's like, what the heck? She's like, came home the other night. I was watching like a YouTube video.
Yeah.
And she's like, it's weird. You're sitting in the dark watching Cops. And I thought of the Step Brothers scene. He's like,
yes, I was about to ask that.
Why are you so sweaty? I was watching Cops.
Well, I kind of figure Cops would be like obviously the most spot on because it's actually Cops.
Yeah.
So, my first would you rather question is, would you rather have the ability to see 10 years into your own future or 6 months into the future of the world?
I like both options.
Right?
I'd prefer my future to see if I can alter it somehow and put it in a direction I want it to go.
Okay. It's a would you rather / hypothetical. You can really reshape the answer however you like. So I like that one. That one's good. I would, because I figured in 10 years we'll be 42. So at that point, life's over.
Over the hill, man.
Yeah, I think 6 months into the future of the world, and then backtrack and say like, okay, what's this idiot up to? Would you? Oh, where'd it go? Would you rather be a genius everyone thinks is an idiot, or an idiot everyone thinks is a genius?
God.
See, having some fun here.
Idiot, everyone, but really a genius.
Yeah.
Because then we like no one would expect anything of you.
That's true.
And then, but then you'd be like, oh, I know how to do this. And you'd be like, oh my gosh, you know how to do that? I'd be like, heck yeah. And they'd be like, okay. And then be like, and then they'd be like, you're a hero, man.
Hey. Brian, again, I can't say how happy I am to see you and just see how you're doing, and also just get touch base with you and know you're making a name for yourself over there in Astoria. This is usually the part of time where I just say if you have social media, if you want to plug it, but you're just on the Facebooks. Good old Facebook. Yeah. So if anyone has questions for you, sure, let's raise that flag.
Yeah, sure. I'm more than happy if they want to go on a ride along with me.
Oh, there you go.
Happy to accommodate that and see what it's like. So.
Thank you so much for making this trip. I know you're here to see the Blazers tonight, so thank you for making this whole pit stop and reconnecting. This has been fun, man. I'm excited.
Fun, super fun.
Thank you so much to the guest for coming on to the show and sharing a part of your story. And thank you to you, the listener, watcher, however you intook this podcast episode. There are a ton of podcasts out there. I'm not going to deny that, that also talk about the same things I talk about. So for you to dedicate some of your day, night, whenever, to listening to the guest's story, that means a ton to me. It means a ton to them. And so I can't say thank you enough to you, the listeners. So again, just a reminder, all episodes are available on all podcast platforms, and they are back on YouTube. So you can follow the show on social media by looking up at KC Media 13 on Instagram and Twitter, and then or X, and then at Conluque Media on Facebook. And then if you are interested in becoming a guest for the show, email me at kcmedia13@yahoo.com, and then just tell me a bit of your story. We would meet, and just so I can get some preliminaries and really just get something scheduled, because having a podcast episode, that's something that I find giving that chance to people means a lot to me, and I want to give that to anyone that's interested. So until the next episode, everyone, please take care.